Thanks, Ruizhi. All right, with that, we'll look at the agenda so you guys know what's in store for you today. We're going to start with what is UX. So, of course, a lot of people have a basic understanding of user experience. We want to make sure people really know what it is before we start talking about it throughout the presentation. Then we'll talk about what exactly a purchase path is and what it consists of. And then we'll look at those different parts in the context of case studies. We have a couple great ones. And then we'll finish up by reviewing what we've learned through purchase path myths and identifying fact and fiction. So let's start by looking at what is user experience. We're going to start here because a lot of people, even marketers like myself, don't really understand what user experience is. Oftentimes because it gets distilled down into the oversimplification of that's good UX or that's bad UX. And so people say that without really understanding what it is. And so now, Ruizhi, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what UX actually is?
Sure. When I think about UX, I like to use the definition by Nielsen Norman Group, which is one of the leading companies in user research and user experience in the company. So how we define user experience is the user experience encompasses all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its service, and its product. So really the key here is the interaction, the touch points between the user and the company. So while we're looking at the purchase path, and of course purchase path is a huge aspect in this interaction because this is the interface where we start selling our service and product to the users, and that's why user experience is a key in determining whether it will sell or not. And when we look at the UX, it's really all-encompassing. So in order to create a high-quality user experience in the company's offerings, there must be the seamless merging of the service of multiple disciplines, including marketing, graphic design, interface design, industrial design, and many other departments in the company as well. So yeah, that's a brief overview of UX and what UX encompasses.
And we generally, for something like this, also bring up the whole idea of the iceberg metaphor. So there's some great graphics out there, even if you just search UX iceberg. Won't throw them in here, but a lot of people get hung up on the very mechanical, where's the location of my buy button best type of UX, when that's really just the tip of the iceberg, and it really affects almost every e-commerce function you have at your organization or business. So now that we understand basically what UX is, it's very complex, but we want to look now at purchase path. So what is a purchase path? Well, we have a basic definition here. What is a purchase path? A tool that enables a customer's journey through the sales process to completing a conversion on your website and then rejoining the marketing hopper. So what does that mean? Well, this is a nice little prototype of a site that we're going to be launching soon, Lax Valley, and you can see over here in the bottom right corner there's a buy button. And for a lot of people, and you might have seen this in some marketing materials and advertisements out there, this is where your purchase path starts. But it's not really. The buy button is part of your purchase path, but it's actually somewhere in the middle. And so this is just sort of a nice little graphic where you can see this little customer wandering through the purchase path and coming eventually to that buy now button on what, and I should note, this is what's called a PDP. We'll be using that term throughout the webinar, a product detail page, or in the case of our performing arts clients, a performance detail page. And so they come to that on their journey. And of course, need to specify as well another, and this is a great high-level universal fact for marketers today and e-commerce users today, this is really more of what your purchase path looks like, the loyalty loop. It's very circular. We're going to display it in just a second, and it's going to be linear, but you have to imagine that the ends meet, and the key is to further engage your customers and keep them coming back to your website and buying more and more. And so now to look at the components of a purchase path, because Ruizhi and I and our adage has worked out what we think are the usual components of a purchase path and what to look for at each stage. And to look at those, we're going to take a peek at a chart we've built, actually in a very cool tool that we won't be using a lot of its capabilities here, called Axure. Axure is a great tool. Check it out if you have time, for building high-fidelity, clickable prototypes of your site and for testing and previewing UX concepts. So with that said, you can see the preview of it here. We're going to take a leap of faith out of our PowerPoint presentation and into our Acture document. Take a look at this big graphic. And we'll remind you again, but if you like this graphic and would like a copy, just let us know in the question box when they go to Webinar Console.
Great. So this is the kind of a dissected purchase path that we'll be looking at today. And just to give an overview before we dive into each section today, so we separate the purchase path into these 6 elements. Start from the very beginning where user hear about, or we call it discover phase, to all the way when user concludes the entire purchase path by seeing the confirmation page. We'll also talk about upsell and how to recover lost opportunities in this process as well. But without further ado, let's dive into the first section here, which is the discover. So discover is really how do people hear about our product. This is way before people enter the traditionally defined the buy purchase path, the buy present purchase path. So there are multiple ways people can hear about the product through word of mouth, organic search, online advertisement, or other form of advertisement, or just through serendipity. And once people know the name of the product or a little bit about the product, then they want to actively seek to learn more about the product. So really here the question we're answering in this step is how do people find the product, or how do we facilitate people in this the seeking process. So we can do that through search or organic search, or a search on your website, or just the browsing of the website. So this is where the navigation, the search tool, or the filtering comes into play, where they can help you sell the product. And after that, we come to the learn process, step. And this is where people can actually learn about the details of the product and how to gather information that will help them make the decision to actually purchase something. So this is where, for example, the product detail page we just looked at on Lax Valley. So that's where this step happens, where we provide users with the information they need. For example, like pricing information, reviews and ratings, and things like that to help them make the decision and push them forward along the purchase path. And after that comes this, what we call the configure step. This is where we offer users the ability to customize their product. And here, the core question we're trying to answer is how will people like their product? How can we make their product serve their needs better? So here, for example, for performing arts client, some of our clients will offer the ability for users to pick their own seed, so they can pick really the seed that they love or they would like to see that. And for organization clients, we offer the ability to register for an event, participate in live activities. And for other e-commerce clients like Lax Valley, sometimes you can pick a size or color, and there are other configurations that we can do here as well. But really the key here is that we want to offer users the ability to customize their product to fit their need. And once users have completed these steps, now comes to the step to commit to the purchase. And here is where we gather the billing information, mailing information, account information. It seems to be a lot of information to gather here, and that's where there's a lot of debate around, okay, like how much information is enough. You know, there's a lot of articles and blogs about this. And really, this what we recommend is a case-by-case kind of scenario where we can take a look at really what the business needs are, and then go from there.
Yeah, I think definitely. I just would add to that if we look at the end of this cycle, when we talk about quick wins and things you can do to quickly increase your conversion rate, a lot of that happens at the end of this process when it comes to optimization if you want to make a quick win right now. One thing I'd point out, if you don't take any other best practices away from this webinar, Ruizhi has helpfully included in this chart at the very end the thank you, confirmation, next steps, and links and suggestions area. And so for links and suggestions, I just say, right now, you know who you are. A lot of times it's people without traditional e-commerce. Maybe it's an event registration or a quote request. Don't just send people to a thank you page that just says thank you, or just redirect them to the home page. Take advantage of the fact that you have a captive audience there and give them new information. A really big trend here is actually putting videos on your thank you page to keep people engaged for a long time after they make that purchase. But definitely, if you're seeing a high bounce rate from your thank you pages, do something about it, because that's traffic you could be capturing.
Great, yeah, and that's why we are really emphasizing the concluding portion of this purchase path, because that's the key in determining whether you can sell more or you just limited your sell in this product that we just went through. And that brings up the question of upselling. A lot of you might ask, what about upsell? Which is a very hot concept now. We're trying to insert as many opportunities as possible to sell more to the user. So for example, we want to sell them similar products or bundle them together and upgrade their existing products to a package and things like that. In this chart, we identify that you can insert the upsell ability from learn, configure, commit, and conclude. And really here, but that doesn't mean that we want to upsell at every single touch point. And that's the key here. We want to identify the right moment to upsell, and we will talk in more detail in the case study later on, like what is a good place to upsell. And another element here that we identified is the recover, which is basically covers what if people exit the path unexpectedly. Are there other ways we can keep them in the path or save this opportunity for later? So here are a couple ways that we've seen people doing to recover the opportunity. For example, you don't have to buy it now. You can save it for later. You can add it to wish list. Maybe we'll give you our follow-up later to see, hey, are you still interested in this? We will alert you when the timer is about to run out. Or we can offer help options, for example, like listing the contact information there or a live chat.
Great. Yeah, live chat is actually something that you're seeing more and more. I'm sure people are familiar with it. And it may be something to look into if your size organization can afford that. Great. Well, thanks. We took a look at this chart. And again, if you're interested in getting this chart, it's very nice. We can actually share the link with you so that you can print it out or just refer to it online. Just reach out to us via the question box and we'll get it over. So now that we understand the basic components of our purchase path, starting all the way over at Discover, we want to look at some case studies in light of this. And so we're going to jump back to our PowerPoint now. You can see and jump into the case studies. These case studies, we're going to look at two very different ones. Again, keep in mind that there's no such thing as a perfect UX case study. So all of these probably have areas they can improve as well, but we're going to look at the best practices we see throughout and just go over briefly, and we won't touch on every one of these, but some questions to keep in mind. And this is another thing. We'll be sharing all the slides with you. Take these questions and use them whenever you go through your own purchase path or whenever you're trying to do conversion optimization. So keep in mind, where did the user come from? And this is based off of your knowledge of your ideal customer profile and based on looking at your Google Analytics and doing actual analytical research to find out where your users are coming from. How did they first enter the purchase path? What are the sources? Are these coming from all organic search? Are you lucky enough to get paid search visitors? Do they know where they are in the path at all times? Is there any sort of progress feedback? We need to make sure we're keeping that feedback loop open throughout the process. A few more questions. Have you provided enough feedback? Make sure you're giving people feedback in terms of loading bars, progress screens, questions about the information they enter if it doesn't appear to be correct. Then always think about, what do we do if we lose the customer? Both in terms of customer bouncing because the form is too complex, and what if a customer is on mobile and gets a call? Will the information be saved? how do we bring them right back? And that's the last question here. How do we bring them back? Because you always have the goal of bringing your customers back. All right, and there are a few other questions here. Hopefully you took a look. If not, you'll look at them later. Well, let's jump into our case studies. Starting with one of the performing arts, this is a recent launch of ours, the Old Globe. Great theater down in San Diego. Very pretty area. The Old Globe is a site we launched just a couple weeks ago. It's built on the Episerver CMS and integrated with the Tessitura CRM. It uses Adage Ace, which is our proprietary performing arts platform for Tessitura. And it actually has a lot of complexity when it comes to e-commerce. Someone who's not in the performing arts might not realize that when it comes to selling single tickets, flex subscriptions, memberships, classes, and donations, there's actually a lot that goes on even on a performing arts e-commerce site. So with that said, we're going to jump to this site live. So that's always an adventure, so bear with us. And of course, if you want to follow along on your own, you can always find the site at theoldglobe.org, and we'd encourage you to definitely take a look at the site either during or after the webinar.
Great. So now we are on the home page of the Old Globe. So if we look at this from the purchase packs perspective, really this is the starting point, one of the starting point of the purchase path. Now, of course, people can enter the show detailed information or the PDPs through Google search or through a marketing email link. But let's say in this example, we're looking at the home page. And the first thing that we notice here is that it's huge banner of the show, and this very, very prominent call to action, buy tickets. So that's really the key here is that if we remember the purchase path we just walked through, in the seeking steps, we want to provide user in an easy way to access the information they're looking for. So there are also a couple ways to look for information here. So for example, we have this upcoming event listing all the events that's coming up. We also have the calendar. And for this demonstration purpose, I'm going to go through the purchase path from the calendar page. And notice this nice feedback where we're telling you it's loading. Everything is working here. So let's say that for someone who are looking for performance around the state range, and they found, oh, this looks good. I'd like to buy a ticket. So now they're officially in the buy purchase path. And from here, like the first thing you see is a confirmation of the show name, the date and time, and the location. So this is really nice in selling in this purchase path by offering users the feedback that they need at this moment. Because as a user, I want to make sure that I'm buying tickets for the right performance. And this is exactly what I'm looking at this moment.
An important thing to keep in mind is that your users will always doubt themselves. That's one of the adages of adage that we use here. So just don't forget that. Users will always doubt themselves in your purchase path.
Yeah. And then as in the configure step, as we mentioned earlier, in this case, we offer users the ability to pick their own seat. And then look at here, we have this nice graphic of the theater, and we have the feedback. Let's say in this case, the balcony seats are all sold out. So we tell users that it's actually sold out to save them from the being stuck in that level and looking at a seat map with no seat available. So in this case, let's go into the orchestra level, and then let's pick a seat. And then let's add it to the cart. And notice that this experience is very smooth. In each single individual step, there's always one and only one call to action that will lead you to the next step in the purchase path. And that's what we think is very important in creating a UX that actually sells, which is you always indicate very clearly to the user what are the next steps and how can you move forward.
And that's something, again, another simple thing that a lot of people overlook is just having one call to action that's not competing with other calls to action. A lot of times when people want to do something with e-commerce, they focus on saying, I want the Amazon experience. And we always tell people, one thing to keep in mind is that Amazon isn't always the best experience because they actually have a lot of competing calls to action, but at the scale they're doing things, they can afford to have that going on.
Yeah. And I think, well, we're looking at an empty card at this moment. I think that's just because we're actually sign in from previous demonstration. So here I'm just going to quickly sign out for the moment.
Another thing to keep in mind as we sign out and go back to buy our ticket, we're buying too many show tickets apparently, is this is another one of the big controversies, and you can see where it can cause some sort of issues, is do you force people to sign in, and what sort of issues do user sign-ins cause? Again, this is one of those grand overarching challenges. Do I force users to sign in, or do I let people continue with guest checkout? We tend to tell people that in general, if you can make that sacrifice, you definitely will, I think, always run the risk of losing people when you make them sign in. But we like for people to have to sign in because signing in means you're capturing that information. So on this site, you can see we do force people to sign in. And for a theater, for this business model, that's very important because they need to capture that information in their database so they can develop audiences. A lot of their business is based on return business. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and in this case, let's say I'm signed in, and notice that all the information can be pulled from my account, so I don't have to enter the billing address or any other information again here to really save the user the hassle of going through all these again and then again. So in this case, if I have if I enter the credit card information, if I have any other comments, I can add them here as well. And then this is the final commit button, which is a complete purchase. And we have in this website, we clearly laid out all the charges so the user have a very clear understanding of what they're paying for. Unfortunately, I used all my vacation days, so I can't go to San Diego to see this show. So we're gonna stop this demonstration from here. But really what we want to point out is that the concluding step, which is the last step, so in the real situation where you actually go through the purchase path, you will be prompted by a thank you page with links to other shows you might be interested in, other things happening at the Old Globe. So that's also a key component that we're not demonstrating here, but we want to point out.
Great. So yeah, unfortunately, traveling to San Diego is beyond the scope of this webinar. So we'll jump back in and introduce briefly the next case study in our case study cycle. So we took a look at Old Globe. Now we have something completely different. We're going to look at the American Academy of Pediatrics. The American Academy of Pediatrics is one of the nation's largest medical associations. It's also built on AppServer, and it's integrated with Abila Net Forum, which is an AMS, an association management system, which is similar to a CRM for associations. And this is something you might not think it, but for many of these large professional associations, this is a very significant e-commerce site. And it's actually something they're facing, again, to do the terrible Amazon comparison, some of the same challenges in that they sell such a wide variety of products, from actual books to ebooks to course and event registrations to data sets and just about everything in between. Now we're going to jump over to their site, and Ruizhi will guide us through a quick look at Shop AAP.
Great, yeah, and while we're pulling out the Shop AAP site, the one thing that I want to point out is that to keep in mind, to look out for when we're walking through the demo is that how AAP creates a consistent experience across different products. So in this case, in this demo, I'm going to demonstrate the ability to purchase two very distinct products at the same time. So let's try with the first one. Let's say we're going to buy a book. And this is where we think having a search functionality for a client with such a wide portfolio as AP is very critical, because for people who are actively seeking a product they already know that they want to buy, having a search functionality really enables them to cut through all the steps and go to the product that they want. Let's say I know I want the red book. And here, immediately after entering the search term, we can see the result returning. And notice we also have this feature on the side bar to help people narrow down the search result if they haven't seen what they're looking for. And notice that here, something very unique to AAP is that they list out all the pricing here. And the reason of that is because AAP has very complex pricing rules based on your role, your occupation, and your membership type. So in this case, I am just a regular member, a regular user on this website, not a member. So that's why my price is more than the member price. And this is like if we're thinking about upselling, this is really where they already started the upselling idea. Very subtle, because people may think, oh, member can actually save money. Maybe I should join the membership.
And that's, of course, something you can also buy through their e-commerce site.
Yeah. And now we've landed on the product detail page of this page with all the information here listed here. And notice one thing is that this overview of the product and pricing and this very prominent call to action will follow you anywhere on this page. And this is what we think is the key. Again, we want to highlight this single call to action that will push you further through the purchase path. And this is what we think a good UX in the purchase path is. And let's say that I add it to cart. And notice that immediately we have this pop-up reminding us, okay, oh, you have one item in your cart. This is a very key step by providing feedback to user about their actions they just took. So in this case, I know I've successfully added this to the cart. And the second product I'm going to buy today is a event or live activity. And in this case, I'm using the site navigation to find the product. And this is, again, another way to facilitate people in seeking a specific product they're looking for. And let's say I'm interested in live activities, and just waiting for it to load. They have quite a lot of activities going on. And let's notice this page, we have this every section clearly laid out. So I know if I can identify the course that I'm interested in and start registering right away. So I'm going to, for this demo, register for this course in Philadelphia. And notice that immediately when I click register, I'm prompted with this 5 steps. So this is really helpful in helping users understand where exactly they are at in terms of this purchase path. So here, all the information, because I'm logged in, will be pulled from my account information to reduce the steps of redundant information entry. And let's say I pick a registration type, and I can continue. And then now I'm in step 2, registration fee. In this case, just confirm that this is the correct amount and the correct registration type. I can continue. And now I'm in the step 3, which is session selection. And notice in this case, we have a lot of sessions that they can register. And let's just say I just pick one that I'm interested in. And notice immediately this is added, and I can make changes here as well. So really offering user the flexibility to configure their product to their need is the key here in providing this great user experience. In this case, let's say I want to add a syllabus, and I can continue. And notice that, like in every page, we have this primary call to action in this orange, yellow, orange color. It's really obvious, and it's consistent throughout the site. We think that's very important too, so that people, users start forming this mental model. Whenever they see an orange button, they know that's where they can move forward. In this case, before finally committing, we give them the opportunity to review everything just one last time to make sure that everything is the same. And now I can add to cart.
And that really is important, as Ruizhi was saying, having that consistency especially now when we look through the fact that we've added two extremely different product types, and the actual sub-purchase path for both these product types for entering them into our cart use the same format. So it's very easy to understand, even if the product is very different and has different configuration options.
Yeah, and now we are looking at the cart page, and notice that this upselling thing going on the side, it's not, it's there so people can read through them, and if they are interested, they can keep browsing, but it's also not in the way of users' purchase path. That's what we don't want to happen, is to stop people from completing their current purchase. That may result in people abandoning the cart. So in this case, I can go ahead and check out, and then notice that we see this step prompt indicator again, just so that people know, okay, now I'm entering the shipping information, I will be entering payment information and offer the chance to review my order, and then finally I will see the confirmation. So it's very clear what's going to happen and where exactly they're at. And we also have this question box here that we offer the help information to the users just in case if they have any questions or if they get stuck for some technical issues. So that's the way, like, kind of to recover potential lost opportunities here as well.
And of course, that feedback can vary in the format. As we mentioned, chat is very popular, live chats. I think it can be very effective. Sometimes I know it's a little in your face. You see that when you're perhaps inactive on a page, they'll jump up. But depending on the scale of your organization, chat is something you can look into.
Yeah, and here it's just the standard credit card information gathering and payment, and then once they can continue, they can go through the cart and finish the process.
And I just noted, it's just a fun thing, but there's actually been some UX studies that have shown, although I know sometimes you see VeriSign, you see other types of official secure payment logos that show that someone's registered with a certifying organization, just having something that says your payment is secure on your payment page has been shown to increase conversions. So in this case, we know, as we built it, the AAP site has very secure payment processing, nothing to worry about. But it is fascinating to note that this is just a generic secure payment notification, but that still plays a large role in increasing conversions. All right, well, we won't actually buy these because we're not pediatricians, but you're welcome to. We'd love for you to support the AAP. But with that, we'll jump back into our PowerPoint, and now we'd like to have some time to review what we've learned, where we're going to be our own mythbusters, basically, you might say. Before we do that, actually, take a look at some results. We won't dwell on these too long from the AAP. We just want to show some of these are very dramatic changes from their old site to their new site. And when we talk about the AAP, we're talking about Shop AAP. So these are results they saw specifically on their e-commerce site. So you can see dramatic changes, increases in visitors and sessions and page views. And then importantly, although it's small, it's very significant, their bounce rate is down. So that's something you don't want to lose people as part of that process. Also, though, before we depart from our case studies, I want to give you a word of forewarning. We're talking about conversion optimization here, and so when we talk about that, you can't jump into the nitty-gritty of conversion optimization if you're not mobile friendly. So make sure you establish a baseline first. These days, everyone is buying things on mobile. Even if you don't think your users are on mobile, they probably are. We hear this from a lot of manufacturers. Oh, none of our users are using mobile. When they actually check their Google Analytics, many of them actually are. So take a look in Google Analytics if you don't believe me. Your users are using mobile more and more, especially when it comes to commerce. People are finding mobile moments where they'll think about your product in the store and want to look at it on your website right then. And so if you're not mobile friendly, you need to get mobile friendly. And really the only option there is responsive design. And so getting into that's a little beyond the scope of this webinar, but if you'd like to talk to us about that, definitely drop us a line and we can explain everything you need to know about that. So now we finally get to be Mythbusters. So let's look at some truth versus fiction, myth versus fact, and explain what we know about purchase paths in another form. So let's start with the myth, clicks are evil. I want every single thing done in one click or as few clicks as humanly possible.
Yeah, so that's actually one thing that we heard a lot from our clients. well, it has some truth in it, but when it comes to the purchase path, it's actually what we think is more important than reducing click is a clearly laid out path with progress feedback. For example, like the AEP path we just demonstrated earlier, and having a clearly laid out guidance in terms of how many steps and where you are exactly at is more important to facilitate the user in moving through the purchase path. So really what we're looking at is not the number of clicks, but the meaning of each click. We want to assign a clear meaning to each click, or i.e. call to action, so that people know exactly what's going to happen when they click. We don't want to combine a ton of different results or meanings to one single click, because that would just lead to confusion.
Right. Think about the motivation behind every single click. All right, another myth. There can never be too much information. I want every single little thing about my product or my service or my performance out there in my customer's face. Don't want them to have to ask questions.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we understand from a the marketing standpoint or sales standpoint, or even from a technical standpoint. We want to really highlight all the selling points that we associate with a specific product. But really, the key here is we do want to provide information, but we want to provide information at the right moment along the purchase path. We don't want to throw everything at the user at the beginning that would just overwhelm them and bury the key information they're seeking deep under the layers. So we want to make sure that there's one superstar at each step or each page, meaning that there's one thing that we want people to take away, and we put it at a very prominent position on the page. So that has been proved to help user understanding the product and remember the brand.
Yep, and really your sales and marketing team would probably appreciate it too if you kept people asking questions. You want to keep those hand raises coming. All right, one more myth. Upsell constantly if you want it to work. Well, the truth is upsell is important and it is helpful in driving upsell, but the thing is we want to do it at a timely manner. So timing is really important. And also the way we upsell, we want to kind of diverse it. As you noticed in the kind of in the old globe, maybe we didn't show it, but like actually in the confirmation page, we will prompt you with, oh, you might also be interested in these shows. These things are coming up at the globe. Also in the AAP, notice the different pricing and membership pricing as a very subtle upselling. And then the other form of upselling when you are in your cart, which you may also like. So things like that, like when and where to upsell, and the way we upsell them is really important, rather than just constantly bombarding them with all the upsell information. And because really the key here is still to sell the main product, and we want users always be aware that that's the key action we want them to take. Right. A lot of big e-commerce definitely has issues with that. Don't sacrifice your main sale for an upsell, because it just won't work that way. All right, so hopefully this helped you sort of digest the case studies. Then we always like to end our webinars with some of our key takeaways. So this is the one sheet that I guess you can put it up at your desk next to that poster with the purchase path. So key takeaways, remember UX, user experience, matters when it comes to selling your product or service. Make your purchase path clear and provide feedback constantly. It's an open loop. Everything is a two-way street these days in our Web 3.0 world. Match your selling point to your user's needs. Sort of a high-level marketing question or point, but important to keep in mind. Be lean and contextual. Seek continuous improvement. So this is something we've talked a little bit about, and I know some of you are curious about, but always be testing, as marketers know, whether it's A/B testing, usability testing, eye movement, focus testing. Always got to be testing and optimizing. And then one thing that I don't think we've talked about it too much, but this can be a big issue for a lot of e-commerce, and especially for UX, don't stress over the outliers. We focus on the big picture. whenever you look at your users, whenever you look at what's going on, the exit rates in your site, you're going to see that some people just don't follow the model you've developed. Focus on getting those big wins and on working with your ideal customers. There will always be outliers, but focus on the big picture, and that's where you're really going to see improvement. All right, well, with that, we can move on over to the Q&A section of our presentation. And so for that section, I'll go ahead and put up our contact information. So if you've got to go, you can see it here. Again, I'm Matt Zellner, the Marketing Manager at Adage, and I'm here with Ruizhi, our User Experience Designer. Our email addresses are up there along with the Adage main number. So if you'd like to talk to us, you can either just drop us an email, drop a question in the question box, or just call the phone number and they'll connect you with someone. Our secretary is a pretty nice lady. And also want to mention before we jump into the Q&A, keep an eye out for our upcoming webinar. We'll actually be sending a notification to all of you in our follow-up. So if this is interesting to you, you can join it. It's a little bit more niche focused next month. So it's focused for Ectron users. It's called Ectron to Episerver, 3 Steps to a Worry-Free Migration. So if you're on Ectron now and considering upgrading to Episerver, we can talk to you about what that entails and what the differences are between the two systems. That's coming up. But for right now, we'll do a little bit of Q&A and then get you guys out of here. So why don't we start, Ruizhi, with a question for you. Someone asked, I've got an existing site with an e-commerce purchase path. What is the bare minimum step 1 for getting started with conversion optimization?
That's a good question. I think whenever we look or think about optimizing a purchase path or any path, we really want to understand how our current path is doing. So I think the bare minimum to start is to have some sort of evaluation of our current existing system, either through usability testing or through analytic review. We want to understand what is doing well and what is not before we start diving into optimizing it.
Great. All right, another question here for you, Ruizhi. How important is search, and what should I look for in search if I'm getting that set up?
So search, I would think search is very important, but it also depends on different clients, different needs. And let's say for someone like AAP with a wide range of portfolios and tons of different products, I think search is very important in helping users finding the product they need, which, going back to the purchase path, really is a key component in the seek step. Similar to the search, how we present the search result, the ability to filter and arrange based on different sequences, that's also very important in helping users find the product they need. Really, what I think about the UX in this search is that how can we promote our product and facilitate people in finding the right product for them. But I guess for someone like, let's say if they only have a handful of products to sell and they only have a single product line, maybe investing a lot of money in a robust search functionality may not be the most cost-efficient way to go about.
I will say this is especially true considering that I'm assuming most of you listening, hopefully all of you, if you're doing e-commerce, are using a CMS, a content management system. And the good thing is if you're doing smaller scale e-commerce, these days most CMSs designed for e-commerce will have some basic search functionality. Oftentimes, I know we use Episerver heavily. With Episerver, that can usually be upgraded to a more robust function that's already tied into your CMS. So if you're curious about what more you could be doing with search, take a look first at what your CMS offers. And then we had one other question that we'd address. What are some tools that you like, that you use for UX testing and for design, Ruizhi?
There are so many tools that we use. But I guess just to get people started, I think for testing, I really like this website called usertesting.com. I think that's a very easy starting or easy to get started with if you don't have a lot of experience in usability testing and UX testing. And of course, here at Adage, we do a lot of in-person interviews and usability testing that may require a lot of setup and the background knowledge about how to run a test. But I think in terms of tools and platform, user testing is definitely a good starting point.
Right. So what was that URL again, Ruizhi? Just the tool you mentioned, just so everyone hears it?
It's usertesting.com. So if you just search user testing, you should find it.
Great. I've definitely looked at that one. It's a great tool. I'd also just say in general, if you're planning to do testing, something to consider is before you look into any sort of special tool, look at your Google Analytics. There are some great Google Analytics reports, such as the exit rate report, where you can see where people are leaving your pages and see the flow through your pages. And the user flow report can be really useful to see where you might have some issues along your purchase path. And you can do that. Google Analytics, of course, is free and relatively easy to set up. If it's not set up already, it's something you can definitely set up very easily. You can also set up your conversions, which hopefully you have, so that you can monitor those by channel and by other segmented groups. So I'd say if you're not using Google Analytics heavily, take a deep, thorough look into Google Analytics before you look into other more complex testing tools. All right, well, with that said, we always like to give people a little time back in their day. If you had a question that you didn't get answered, I'd encourage you to make sure you've asked it. We do know there are a few others that we need to get to. If you have questions after the webinar is over that you think of, feel free to email us or hello@adagentechnologies.com if you just want to send it to our general email, and we'll make sure to answer it. Also want to let you guys know we will be sharing the slides from our webinar, so you'll be getting a follow-up with these slides. And let us know if there's anyone else at your organization who missed the webinar who might want to get a special presentation, because we can always see about setting those up. All right, thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great day.